The left hook came like a freight train, sending Daniel Hayes crashing into the ropes as blood splattered across the canvas. His vision blurred, but through the haze he saw her Maya, his 10-year-old daughter, clutching that eviction notice in her small hands. 3 days. That's all they had before losing everything. This fight wasn't about glory or titles, it was about survival. Stay with me until the end of this incredible story and drop a comment about which city you're watching from so I can see how far this tale has traveled. The alarm clock's shrill cry pierced through the darkness at 4:47 a.m., 3 minutes before Daniel Hayes had set it to go off. He'd been awake anyway, staring at the water stain on the ceiling that had grown another inch since last week. The landlord wouldn't fix it, not when they were already 2 months behind on rent. Daniel's calloused hand silenced the alarm before it could wake Maya. His knuckles, scarred from years of boxing, ached in the morning cold that seeped through their apartment's paper-thin walls. Outside, Chicago's winter wind howled like a wounded animal, rattling the windows that he'd sealed with duct tape to keep the heat in. He sat up slowly, his 38-year-old body protesting with each movement. The mattress on the floor they'd sold the bed frame months ago creaked under his weight. In the corner of the room, Maya slept curled up on her own mattress, buried under 3 blankets he'd gotten from the Salvation Army. Her math textbook lay open beside her homework, half finished. She'd fallen asleep studying again. Daniel padded quietly to the kitchen, if you could call the corner with a hot plate and mini-fridge a kitchen. The eviction notice on the counter seemed to glow in the dim light filtering through the window. Final notice. Pay $2,400 by Monday, January 15th, or vacate premises. Today was Friday the 12th. He opened the fridge knowing what he'd find. Half a loaf of bread, a jar of peanut butter with maybe 2 servings left, 3 eggs, and a carton of milk that would expire tomorrow. He closed it quietly and leaned against the counter, his head in his hands. "You're up early again." Daniel turned to find Maya standing in the doorway, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Even at 10 years old, she had her mother's perceptive gaze, the kind that saw through his forced smiles and false reassurances. "Just getting ready for work, baby girl, Tuck," he said, pulling her into a hug. "You should get back to sleep. School doesn't start for 3 more hours." "The Johnsons are fighting again, Whit," she said, referring to their neighbors whose arguments regularly penetrated the walls. "And I heard you walking around." Daniel kissed the top of her head. Her hair smelled like the cheap shampoo from the dollar store, but she'd braided it neatly before bed, just like her mother used to do. "I'll make you breakfast," he said, already reaching for the eggs. "Save them," Maya said quietly. "I'm not that hungry." The words hit him like a physical blow. No 10-year-old should have to ration food. No child should have to pretend they're not hungry to make sure there's enough for tomorrow. "Maya." "I know about the notice, Dad." She walked to the counter and picked up the red-lettered paper. "I saw it yesterday when I got home from school." Daniel's throat tightened. "That's not for you to worry about." "Mrs. Chen from 4B got one, too. She said they're kicking out half the building to renovate and raise the rent." Maya set the paper down carefully like it might explode. "She's moving in with her son in Milwaukee." "We're not going anywhere, Daniel said, though the words felt hollow. "I've got some leads. There's a warehouse job opening up and—" "Dad." Maya's voice was steady, too steady for a child. "It's okay. I know you're trying." She walked back to her mattress and pulled out a crumpled envelope from under her pillow. "I've been saving my lunch money. It's only $43, but—" "No." The word came out harsher than Daniel intended. He softened his voice. "No, baby girl. That's your money. You keep that." "But—" "Maya, I'm your father. It's my job to take care of you, not the other way around." He knelt down to her level, taking her small hands in his scarred ones. "I promise you, I'm going to figure this out. We're not losing this place." She nodded, but he could see she didn't believe him. How could she? They'd been scraping by ever since her mother died 2 years ago. Lost the house first. Medical bills ate through their savings like acid. Then the car repossessed when he couldn't make payments. Now this apartment their last foothold on stability. After Maya left for school, walking the 8 blocks because they couldn't afford the bus pass, Daniel stood in front of the bathroom mirror. The man staring back at him looked older than 38. Gray streaked through his black hair and lines carved deep grooves around his eyes. He'd been handsome once back when he was an amateur boxer with dreams of going pro. Back when Sarah was alive and they thought they had their whole lives ahead of them. His phone buzzed. Tommy Kowalski's name lit up the screen. "Yeah," Daniel answered. "Do you there? I've been trying to reach you for 2 days, man." Tommy had been his trainer back in the day before Daniel hung up his gloves to focus on family. They'd kept in touch, but Daniel had been avoiding his calls lately. Pride was all he had left. "Sorry, Tommy, been busy with work." "Cut the bullshit, D. I heard you got laid off from the construction site. And I heard about the eviction." Daniel's jaw clenched. "News travels fast. Look, I didn't call to give you shit. I called because I might have something for you. You remember Big Eddie Martinez, the promoter?" "Yeah, he's putting together a fight card for tomorrow night. Nothing fancy, just a warehouse show in Cicero. But here's the thing, one of his fighters just pulled out. Broke his hand in training like an idiot." Daniel's pulse quickened. "Tommy, I haven't fought in 5 years. I know, but hear me out. The purse is $3,000. Win or lose, you walk away with $3,000. That covers your rent and then some. $3,000. Enough to pay the rent, buy groceries, maybe even get Maya a winter coat that actually fit. Who's the opponent?" Tommy hesitated. "Marcus Thunder Washington." Daniel's blood ran cold. The Marcus Washington? The kid who's 12-0 with 10 knockouts. He's 23, hungry and looking to make a name for himself, yeah. "Tommy, he'll kill me." "No, he won't. You've got ring sense, D. You've got experience. The kid's got power, sure, but he's raw. He makes mistakes." "I'm 38 years old, Tommy. I worked construction. I haven't trained seriously in years." "But you've been hitting the bags at Murphy's gym. Don't deny it. Murphy told me he sees you there at 5 in the morning 3 times a week." It was true. Daniel had been going to Murphy's not to train for fights, but to burn off the stress, the anger, the crushing weight of failure. It was the only thing that kept him sane. "This is insane," Daniel said. "Maybe, but it's $3,000 insane. Fights tomorrow night, 8 o'clock. You show up, you fight, you get paid. That's it." Daniel looked at the eviction notice on the counter. Monday morning, they'd be on the street if he didn't come up with the money. In January. In Chicago. What if I get hurt? Who takes care of Maya? You're getting evicted in 3 days, D. What happens to Maya then? The words stung because they were true. "Let me think about it," Daniel said. "You've got until noon. After that, Eddie finds someone else." After Tommy hung up, Daniel sat in the silence of the empty apartment. The radiator clanged and hissed, fighting a losing battle against the cold. Somewhere above them, footsteps paced back and forth, Mrs. Chen probably packing her life into boxes. He thought about the first time he'd stepped into a ring 16 years old and full of rage at a world that had taken his father too young. Boxing had saved him, then gave him purpose, discipline, a way to channel the anger into something productive. He thought about Sarah, how she'd come to one of his fights and waited for him afterward. "You fight like you're trying to prove something," she'd said. "What happens when you don't have anything left to prove?" He'd kissed her instead of answering, but now he knew the answer. "You fight because you have everything to lose." At 11:47 a.m., Daniel called Tommy back. "I'll do it." "Thank Christ. Okay, come by the old gym this afternoon. We'll get you signed up and—" "Tommy, I need you to do me a favor." "What kind of favor?" "Don't tell anyone about this, not yet. I don't want Maya finding out." "D, you can't. She's been through enough. If I lose, if I get hurt, I don't want her last memory of me to be getting my ass kicked for rent money." Tommy sighed. "This is a bad idea, keeping it from her. Everything about this is a bad idea, but I'm out of good ones." That afternoon, Daniel took the L train to Tommy's old gym on the south side. The place hadn't changed in 5 years. Same peeling paint, same smell of sweat and leather, same faded posters of fighters who'd trained here before moving on to bigger things. Tommy was waiting in the ring working the mitts with a young fighter. When he saw Daniel, he called out, "Take 5, kid." The fighter couldn't have been more than 19, looked at Daniel with curiosity as he climbed out of the ring. Daniel recognized the look sizing up the competition, even when there was none. "Jesus, D," Tommy said, getting a good look at him. "You've lost weight." Haven't been eating much, Daniel admitted. Well, that ends now. You're fighting at light heavyweight 175 pounds. What are you walking around at? Maybe 170. Good, you won't have to cut. Bad news is Washington will have 15 pounds on you at least. Kid rehydrates like a camel. Tommy tossed him a pair of gloves. Let's see what you've got left in the tank. For the next hour, Tommy put him through his paces. Shadowboxing, heavy bag, speed bag, footwork drills. Daniel's muscle memory kicked in his body, remembering rhythms his mind had tried to forget. But he was slow, his timing off. His wind gone after 2 rounds. We've got 1 day, Tommy said, wrapping Daniel's hands. We're not trying to get you in fight shape, that's impossible. We're trying to get you through 3 rounds without dying. Thanks for the pep talk. I'm serious, D. This kid Washington, he's a headhunter. Loads up on every punch trying for the highlight reel knockout. He'll come at you hard in the first round, try to end it early. So I survived the first hope he punches himself out. That's the plan. You were always smart in there, D. Use your head. Make him miss. Make him pay. Don't try to trade with him, you'll lose. But if you can frustrate him, make him sloppy. I might last 3 rounds and collect my check. Exactly. They worked for 3 more hours. By the end, Daniel could barely lift his arms. His legs felt like jelly, his lungs burned, and every part of him ached. But beneath the exhaustion, something else stirred, something he hadn't felt in years. Purpose. Where's the fight? Daniel asked, toweling off sweat. Warehouse on Cicero Avenue. Used to be a meatpacking plant. Eddie's converted it into an underground venue. Nothing sanctioned, you understand. No athletic commission, no drug tests, no official records. So if something goes wrong, we're on our own, yeah. But Eddie's been running these shows for years. He's got an ambulance on standby, a doctor at ringside. It's as safe as unsanctioned fighting gets. Daniel laughed bitterly. Safe. Look, you want to back out, now's the time. No shame in it. No. Daniel pulled on his jacket, wincing as his shoulders protested. I need that money. Be here tomorrow at 5. We'll wrap your hands, go over strategy one more time, then head to the venue. As Daniel headed for the door, Tommy called out, D, you sure you don't want Maya there? Daniel paused his hand on the doorknob. I'm sure. She's going to find out eventually. Maybe. But not tomorrow. Tomorrow she's going to her friend's house for a sleepover. She doesn't need to see this. The train ride home felt longer than usual. Daniel dozed off twice, jerking awake when the conductor announced his stop. Every muscle in his body screamed as he climbed the stairs to their apartment. Maya was already home doing homework at their small table. Hey, baby girl, he said, trying not to limp. She looked up and her eyes immediately narrowed. Why are you walking funny? Just help Tommy move some equipment at his gym. Old man's not as young as he used to be. You went to Tommy's gym. Daniel busied himself with the mail, avoiding her gaze. Yeah, just catching up. Hey, you still going to Jessica's tomorrow night? Yeah, her mom's picking me up at 4. Maya set down her pencil. Dad, what's going on? Nothing's going on. You're lying. The accusation hung in the air between them. Daniel turned to face his daughter, this 10-year-old who'd grown up too fast, who could read him like one of her books. I'm working on something, he said carefully. A job opportunity. It could solve our problems. What kind of job? The kind that pays well, that's all you need to know right now. Maya stood up, walking over to him. She barely came up to his chest, but her presence filled the room. Is it dangerous? Everything's dangerous these days, baby girl. That's not an answer. Daniel knelt down, taking her hands. Do you trust me? Yes. Then trust that I'm doing what I need to do to keep us together, to keep us safe. She studied his face for a long moment, then nodded. Okay. 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 But Dad, whatever it is, be careful. He pulled her into a hug, holding her tight enough that she squeaked in protest. Always am, baby girl. Always am. That night after Maya had gone to bed, Daniel stood at the window looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Marcus Washington was probably sleeping soundly confident in his upcoming victory, the young lion ready to devour another lamb thrown into his den. But Daniel wasn't a lamb. He'd been a wolf once before life had filed down his teeth and dulled his claws. Tomorrow night, he'd need to remember how to hunt even if he was the one being hunted. He thought about Sarah again, how she'd looked near the end. Still beautiful, despite the chemo, still strong, despite the pain. "Promise me something." She'd set her hand weak in his. "Promise me you'll teach Maya to fight." Sarah. Not with her fists, with her heart. Teach her that getting knocked down isn't the end. Teach her that sometimes the only choice is to get back up. He'd promised. But how could he teach her what he'd forgotten himself? The next morning, Saturday, Daniel woke Maya early. "I want to show you something," he said. He led her to their small closet and pulled out a cardboard box from the top shelf. Inside were his old boxing trophies, newspaper clippings, and a photo of him in the ring arms raised in victory. "That's you?" Maya asked, holding the photo. "Long time ago." "You look happy." "I was. That was the night I won the Golden Gloves, the night I met your mother." Maya traced her finger over the photo. "Why are you showing me this now?" "Because I want you to know that your old man wasn't always just a construction worker. I was something once. I had dreams." "You're still something, Dad." "Yeah." "What's that?" "My hero." The words nearly broke him. He pulled her close, breathing in the scent of her hair, memorizing this moment. "Listen, baby girl. Whatever happens, remember that everything I do is for you. Everything." "Dad, you're scaring me." "Don't be scared. Just remember that I love you, more than all the stars in the sky. More than all the fish in the sea," she replied, completing their old bedtime ritual. They spent the morning together, something they hadn't done in months. Daniel made her pancakes with the last of their flour-drew smiley faces with syrup. They watched cartoons on their ancient television, played cards, talked about everything and nothing. At 3:30, a car honked outside. "That's Jessica's mom," Maya said, grabbing her overnight bag. Daniel walked her to the door. "Have fun, baby girl. Be good." "I always am." She paused at the door, looking back at him. "Dad." "Whatever that job is tonight, come home okay?" "I promise." She nodded and ran down the stairs. Daniel watched from the window as she climbed into the minivan, waving until it turned the corner and disappeared. The apartment felt impossibly empty without her. At 5 o'clock, Daniel arrived at Tommy's gym. His trainer was all business, wrapping his hands with practiced efficiency. "How you feeling?" "Like I'm about to jump off a cliff." "That's about right." Tommy finished with the wrapping, checking the tape was secure. "Remember the plan. Survive the first round. Move, don't stand still. Keep your hands up, chin down. Don't try to be a hero." "Heroes don't fight for rent money, Tommy." "No, they fight for their families. That's what you're doing." They drove to the warehouse in Tommy's beat-up Ford. The building looked abandoned from the outside, but Daniel could hear the muffled sound of a crowd within. Cars filled the parking lot, everything from beaters to BMWs. "Big Eddie knows how to draw a crowd," Tommy said. Inside the warehouse had been transformed into a makeshift arena. A ring stood in the center, surrounded by folding chairs and bleachers. Maybe 300 people packed the space money, changing hands as bets were placed. The air was thick with smoke and anticipation. Tommy Kowalski. Big Eddie Martinez waddled over all 300 pounds of him, squeezed into a suit that had given up fitting him properly years ago. "This your replacement fighter, Daniel Hayes," Tommy said. "He's ready." Eddie looked Daniel up and down. "He better be. Washington's people are here and they're expecting a show." He handed Tommy an envelope. "Half now, half after the fight. Win or lose like I promised." Tommy pocketed the envelope. "We'll give them a show. You've got an hour. Dressing room's in the back." The dressing room was a converted office, bare except for a massage table and a few chairs. Daniel changed into his gear-old shorts he'd kept for some reason boots that had seen better days. No robe, no fancy entrance music. Just a man preparing to fight for survival. "I need to tell you something," Tommy said as he helped Daniel warm up. "There's going to be some important people watching tonight. Scouts from Golden Boy, maybe even Top Rank. Washington's team invited them." "Good for Washington." "I'm saying you could make an impression, even in a loss if you show heart." "Tommy, I'm not trying to restart my career. I'm trying to pay rent." "I know, but no buts. 3 rounds, 3 grand, then I go back to my life." Tommy nodded, but Daniel could see he wasn't convinced. At 7:45, someone knocked on the door. "Hayes, You're up in 15, must spum. Daniel's stomach churned. His hands, despite being wrapped, trembled slightly. Normal, Tommy said, noticing. Means you're taking this seriously. I'm fighting a kid who could kill me for money I desperately need while my daughter's at a sleepover. Nothing about this is normal. You want to back out. Daniel thought about Maya, about the eviction notice, about the promise he'd made to Sarah. No, let's go. The walk to the ring felt both eternal and instant. The crowd parted, most of them looking at Daniel with confusion. Who was this nobody fighting their rising star? Daniel climbed through the ropes, the canvas firm under his feet. The lights were hotter than he remembered, the noise louder. His heart hammered against his ribs. Then Marcus Washington entered. The kid was everything Daniel wasn't, young, muscled like a Greek god, confident to the point of arrogance. He shadowboxed his way to the ring, his entourage hyping the crowd. When he climbed through the ropes, he looked at Daniel and laughed. This is my opponent, he called out to his corner. This old man. The crowd laughed with him. Daniel felt heat rise in his chest, but Tommy's hand on his shoulder kept him calm. Let him talk, Tommy whispered. Cocky fighters make mistakes. The referee, a grizzled old-timer named Pat, called them to the center of the ring. All right, gentlemen, 3 rounds, 3 minutes each. No hitting below the belt, no rabbit punches, no hitting after the bell. Protect yourselves at all times. Touch gloves if you want to. Washington held out his gloves with a smirk. Daniel touched them briefly. Try not to die, old man, Washington said. Daniel said nothing, returning to his corner. Remember, Tommy said, putting in Daniel's mouthpiece, survive the first, move and survive. The bell rang. Washington came out like a hurricane, exactly as Tommy had predicted. His first punch, a massive right hand, whistled past Daniel's head as he slipped to the side. The second, a left hook, caught Daniel's shoulder as he backed away. The crowd roared, smelling blood already. Daniel circled, keeping his guard high, feet moving. Washington stalked him, loading up on every punch, trying to separate Daniel's head from his shoulders. A jab snapped Daniel's head back. Stars flickered in his vision, but he kept moving. Another right hand grazed his temple. The kid was faster than anyone Daniel had faced in his amateur days. Stop running, Washington taunted, playing to the crowd. Daniel kept circling, making Washington chase him. 30 seconds left in the round. His legs already felt heavy, his breathing labored. Washington cornered him against the ropes and unleashed a combination. Daniel covered up, feeling the impacts through his guard. Body, head. Something cracked, hopefully not a rib. The bell rang. Daniel stumbled back to his corner, gasping for air. Beautiful, Tommy said, squirting water into his mouth. You frustrated him. He expected you to be done already. I feel done. You're not. Look at him. Daniel glanced across the ring. Washington was animated, arguing with his corner, gesturing angrily. He wanted the knockout. Now he's got to work for it. You've got him thinking. 2 more rounds, Daniel gasped. 2 more rounds. The bell for round 2 rang. Washington came out more measured this time, but still aggressive. He'd learned Daniel could move, so he started cutting off the ring, using his footwork to trap Daniel. A body shot slipped through, driving the air from Daniel's lungs. He doubled over and Washington pounced. An uppercut snapped Daniel's head back. A right cross sent him stumbling into the ropes. The crowd was on its feet, screaming for the finish. But Daniel had been here before, hurt and desperate. His body remembered what his mind had tried to forget. As Washington came in for the kill, Daniel pivoted, making him miss, and threw his first real punch of the fight, a short left hook that caught Washington on the temple. The kid's legs buckled for just a moment. The crowd went silent, then exploded. Washington's eyes went wide with shock, then narrowed with rage. He charged forward, swinging wildly. Daniel weathered the storm, picking his shots, landing another clean left to the body. When the bell rang, both men were breathing hard. Now we've got a fight, Tommy shouted, working on a cut above Daniel's eye. You hurt him with that hook. He's never been hurt before. He's angry now. Good. Angry fighters make mistakes. 1 more round, D. Give me 1 more round. The final round. Daniel's body screamed in protest as he stood. Everything hurt, his ribs, his head, his hands. But Maya's face flashed in his mind. The eviction notice. The promise to Sarah. The bell rang. Washington came out desperate now, his technique abandoned for raw power. He wanted to end this to prove the second round was a fluke. Daniel moved on instinct now, muscle memory taking over where conscious thought failed. Slipped the jab pivot from the cross counter with the left. He was landing now, not hurting Washington, but scoring, frustrating him further. With 90 seconds left, Washington loaded up on a massive right hand. Daniel saw it coming like it was in slow motion. He slipped inside and threw the hardest left hook of his life. It landed flush on Washington's jaw. The kid's eyes rolled back. His legs went completely. He fell backward, his head bouncing off the canvas. The warehouse erupted in chaos. Daniel stood there stunned as the referee counted. Washington's corner was screaming. The crowd was going insane, and Tommy was jumping up and down like a madman. 8, 9, 10. It was over. Daniel Hayes, 38-year-old single father fighting for rent money, had just knocked out an undefeated prospect. The next minutes were a blur. People rushing the ring cameras, flashing someone raising his hand in victory. Big Eddie pushed through the crowd, the rest of the money in his hand, along with something else, a business card. "That was the damnedest thing I've seen in 20 years, Eddie said. "You just made me a fortune in bets, and you've got some people who want to talk to you." Daniel took the money, but ignored the card. He pushed through the crowd, Tommy at his side, just trying to get to the dressing room. "You don't understand," Tommy was saying. "That was Marcus Washington. You just knocked out Marcus Washington. The scouts are losing their minds. They want to sign you tonight." "I want to see Maya." Daniel said, his words slurred through the swollen lip. "What?" "My daughter. I want to see my daughter." In the dressing room, as Tommy iced his ribs, Daniel counted the money. $3,500. Eddie had thrown in a bonus. "There's more where that came from," Tommy said. "Golden Boy wants to offer you a development contract. 50 grand to start more if you keep winning." "I'm done fighting." "You just knocked out—" "I know what I did. I did what I had to do. Now I'm done." Daniel stood up, wincing. Everything would hurt worse tomorrow, but tonight he had enough money to pay rent, buy groceries, get Maya that winter coat. "You could be something again," Tommy said quietly. "You could be a contender." "I am something," Daniel replied, pulling on his jacket. "I'm a father." He left the warehouse through the back door, avoiding the crowd still buzzing about the upset. The cold Chicago night air hit his swollen face like a blessing. His phone buzzed, a text from Maya. "Dad, Jessica's mom said we can come home early if we want. Can you pick me up?" He typed back with swollen fingers. "On my way, baby girl." Daniel caught a cab, not caring about the expense for once. As the city lights blurred past, he thought about what he'd tell Maya. The truth eventually. When she was older, when she could understand that sometimes heroes don't wear capes or fight for glory. Sometimes they just fight to keep the lights on. The cab pulled up to Jessica's house. Maya was waiting on the porch, her overnight bag in hand. When she saw him get out of the cab, she ran down the steps, then stopped short, seeing his face in the porch light. "Dad, what happened?" "I had that job interview, remember? So job interviews don't give you black eyes." Daniel knelt down, wincing at the pain in his ribs. "No, they don't. Come on. I'll tell you everything on the way home." In the cab, Maya held his hand as he told her the truth. About the fight, about the money, about why he'd done it. She listened without interrupting, her small hand squeezing his when he described getting hurt. "You won?" she finally asked. "Yeah, baby girl, I won." "Because you're a fighter?" "No," Daniel said, pulling her close. "Because I'm your dad." They rode in silence for a while, the city passing by outside. Finally, Maya spoke again. "Mom would be proud of you." Daniel's eyes burned with tears he wouldn't let fall. "You think so?" "I know so. You got back up just like you promised her you'd teach me." "When did you get so smart?" "I had a good teacher." Monday morning, Daniel walked into the landlord's office with the rent money. Mr. Kowalski, no relation to Tommy, looked surprised. "Hayes didn't expect to see you." "I've got your money." Daniel placed the cash on the desk. Kowalski counted it, then looked up. "This is just this month. You still owe. I'll have the rest by Friday." "And how exactly will you manage that?" Daniel placed a contract on the desk. Not the Golden Boy boxing contract that was still sitting on his kitchen counter unsigned. This was different. A trainer position at Tommy's gym, working with young fighters, teaching them what he knew. The pay wasn't great, but it was steady, honest. I got a job. Kowalski reviewed the contract, then nodded. Friday then. Don't be late. Walking home, Daniel passed Murphy's gym. Through the window, he could see fighters working the bags, sparring, chasing their dreams. He thought about walking in, maybe hitting the bags for a while. Instead, he kept walking. Maya would be home from school soon, and he'd promised to help with her homework. That evening, as they sat at their small table working through Maya's math problems, she asked, "Are you going to fight again?" Daniel had been expecting the question. The Golden Boy contract could change their lives. Real money, real opportunity, but also real danger, real time away from Maya. "What do you think I should do?" Maya chewed on her pencil, considering. "I think you already decided." "Oh yeah. Yeah. You're going to teach other people to fight instead. Like you teach me." "I don't teach you to fight." "Not with fists, Maya said. "With heart. Remember." Daniel smiled, his split lip protesting. "Yeah, baby girl, I remember." That night after Maya was asleep, Daniel sat by the window again. The city lights twinkled like stars they couldn't see through the pollution. Somewhere out there, Marcus Washington was probably nursing his wounds and his wounded pride, planning his comeback. Tommy had called 6 times. The boxing media was calling it the upset of the year. Videos of the knockout were already viral. The rent money fighter, they were calling him. His phone hadn't stopped buzzing with interview requests. Daniel turned off his phone and picked up a pen. On the Golden Boy contract, he wrote 3 words, "Thanks but no." He'd fought for rent money and walked out a legend, they said. But legends were for other people to remember. Daniel had something more important. A daughter to raise, a promise to keep, a life to build one day at a time. The next morning, he'd mail back the contract and go to Tommy's gym to start his new job. He'd teach hungry young fighters how to throw a punch, how to take one, how to get back up when they fell. But most importantly, he'd teach them what Sarah had taught him. What he was teaching Maya. Fighting wasn't about the glory or the money or the crowds. It was about protecting what mattered, about standing up when standing was all you had left, about choosing love over fear every single time. The radiator clanged and hissed, still fighting its battle against the cold. But for the first time in months, the apartment felt warm. Daniel Hayes, the rent money fighter who became a legend, closed his eyes and did something he hadn't done in years. He rested. The morning after Daniel mailed back the Golden Boy contract, Chicago woke to an unusual February thaw. Water dripped from icicles hanging off their apartment building's fire escape, creating a rhythm that matched the throbbing in Daniel's still swollen knuckles. Maya had already left for school, insisting she could walk herself despite his protests about his ability to accompany her. "Dad, you can barely walk without groaning," she'd said, kissing his bruised cheek before heading out the door. Daniel stood at the window, watching her navigate the slushy sidewalks, her red backpack bouncing with each careful step. She'd grown 3 inches since Sarah's death, but that backpack, bought during better times, still dwarfed her small frame. He made a mental note to use some of the remaining fight money for new school supplies. His phone vibrated on the counter. Tommy again. The 17th call since yesterday. Daniel finally answered. "Yeah, Jesus Christ, D, I thought you died." Tommy's voice crackled through the speaker. "You can't just disappear after what happened Saturday night." "I told you I was done, Tommy." "Done?" "You knocked out an undefeated prospect and you're done. Do you understand what you've started here?" Daniel poured himself coffee with his left hand, his right still too swollen to grip properly. "I finished it. That's different. Listen to me. Washington's people are going crazy. They want a rematch. Big Eddie's offering 20 grand for no. 20 grand, D, that's a year's rent." "I said no." There was a long pause on the other end. Daniel could hear the gym in the background, the rhythmic smack of gloves on heavy bags, the bell marking rounds, Tommy's other fighters working through their morning routines. "You still coming in today?" Tommy finally asked. "For the training job?" "Yeah, give me an hour." "Good, because I've got someone here who wants to meet you." "Tommy, not a promoter, just trust me on this one." The line went dead. Daniel stared at his phone, then at his reflection in the black screen. The swelling had gone down some, but purple-blue bruises painted abstract art across his jaw. His left eye was still half closed, giving him a perpetual wink. He looked like exactly what he was, a man who'd been in a fight he shouldn't have won. The L train to Tommy's gym was crowded with morning commuters, none of whom gave Daniel's battered face a second glance. This was Chicago. Everyone was fighting something. He found a seat in the back, closing his eyes as the train rattled along elevated tracks. His ribs screamed with each jostle, but the pain felt different now. Not the sharp edge of immediate damage, but the deeper ache of healing. He thought about the contract he'd sent back, wondering if he was making the biggest mistake of his life. $50,000 to start. More if he kept winning. Enough to move Maya to a better neighborhood, better school, better everything. But at what cost? Training camps meant weeks away from her. Fights meant risking his health, maybe his life. And for what? To prove something to people who didn't matter, to chase a dream that had already passed him by. The train announced his stop. Daniel pulled himself up, ignoring the fresh wave of pain, and made his way down to street level. Tommy's gym sat between a check-cashing place and a boarded-up deli, a relic from when this neighborhood had been different. The painted sign above the door, Kowalski's Boxing Club, where champions are made, was faded but defiant. Inside, the familiar smell hit him immediately. Leather and sweat and something else. Hope maybe, or desperation. They smelled surprisingly similar. The morning crew was already deep into training. Young fighters. Most of them teenagers worked through drills with the focused intensity of kids who'd learned early that fighting might be their only way out. Danny Hayes. The voice came from the ring, where a young black kid, maybe 15, stood staring at him with wide eyes. Holy shit, that's really him. The dude who knocked out Thunder. Within seconds, Daniel was surrounded. Kids who'd been focused on their training moments before crowded around him, phones appearing from nowhere. Yo, that left hook was insane. My cousin lost 300 betting against you. Can you show us that counter you threw in the second? All right, back to work. Tommy's voice cut through the chaos. He emerged from his office, parting the crowd like Moses. You can bother Mr. Hayes later. Right now you've all got training to finish. The kids dispersed reluctantly, throwing glances back at Daniel as they returned to their stations. Tommy grabbed Daniel's arm, steering him toward the office. Local hero now, Tommy said. Video of the knockout has 2 million views already. Great. Could be if you weren't so stubborn. Tommy opened the office door. Daniel Hayes meets Sister Catherine. Daniel stopped short. Sitting in Tommy's cramped office was a nun in traditional habit, maybe 60 years old, with sharp blue eyes that seemed to see through his skin to the bones beneath. She stood extending a hand. Mr. Hayes, I've heard a great deal about you. Daniel shook her hand, carefully, confused. Sister. Sit, both of you, she said, retaking her seat with the authority of someone used to being obeyed. Mr. Hayes, I run St. Augustine's Youth Center on the west side. We have a boxing program there. Had, rather. Our trainer left last month for a job in Las Vegas. Daniel glanced at Tommy, who was studiously examining his filing cabinet. I saw your fight Saturday night, Sister Catherine continued. You were at an underground fight. A small smile creased her weathered face. I go where my kids go, Mr. Hayes. 3 of them were there betting their McDonald's paychecks on that Washington boy. They lost thanks to you. Sorry. Don't be. They learned a valuable lesson about counting chickens. She leaned forward. But I didn't come here to discuss gambling. I came to offer you a job. I already have a job. Tommy hired me to assist with training here, yes. $300 a week if I'm informed correctly. I'm offering you $600 to run our entire program. 20 kids, full equipment, gymnasium space, and a 2-bedroom apartment above the center, utilities included. Daniel's mouth went dry. That's generous. It's necessary. These kids, Mr. Hayes, they're not trying to become champions. They're trying to survive. The ring is the only place some of them feel safe, feel in control. They need someone who understands that. Someone who fights for more than glory. How do you know I'm that person? Sister Catherine reached into her bag and pulled out a folder. Inside was a printout of a news article from 2 years ago. The headline read, "Local man loses wife to cancer, faces foreclosure." Daniel's photo stared back at him, Maya in his arms outside their old house. "I do my research," she said simply. "You've been fighting for survival long before Saturday night. That's what these kids need to see. Not that you can win, but that you can endure." Tommy finally spoke up. "It's a good opportunity, Dee, and you'd still be able to work corners here for extra money." Daniel stared at the article, at the photo of Maya clutching her stuffed rabbit, the one she'd had to leave behind when they lost the house. "When would I start?" "Today, if possible. The kids have been training themselves for 3 weeks. It's not going well." "I need to talk to my daughter first." "Of course. But Mr. Hayes." Sister Catherine stood her presence filling the small office despite her modest stature. "These children don't need another coach who sees them as potential meal tickets. They need someone who sees them as people worth saving. I believe you're that someone." She left her card on Tommy's desk and swept out her habit rustling against the doorframe. Daniel and Tommy sat in silence for a moment. "A nun, Tommy, really?" "She's not just any nun. Sister Catherine's connected. City council, police chief, even some of Big Eddie's people. Nobody messes with her or her kids." "And the apartment? It's decent. Not fancy, but solid. Good neighborhood, good school district." "Good school district." The words hit Daniel like a combination. Maya could go to a real school, not the underfunded mess she attended now. "I need to see it first." "She figured you'd say that." Tommy handed him a key. "Address is on the card. Go look. The kids don't start until 4 anyway." Daniel took the key, its weight heavier than it should be. "Why are you pushing this?" "You just hired me." "Because you're wasted here, Dee, teaching basics to wannabe tough guys? You're better than that. Those kids at St. Augustine's, they need what you've got." "Which is what exactly?" "Proof that getting knocked down isn't the end of the world." Daniel left the gym and caught a bus to the west side. The neighborhood around St. Augustine's was different from his current one. Not wealthy, but cared for. No broken windows, no gang tags on the walls. An old woman watered flowers in a window box, waving as he passed. The youth center was a converted warehouse similar to where he'd fought, but transformed into something hopeful rather than desperate. Basketball courts, a computer lab visible through windows, and at the back, a proper boxing gym with a regulation ring and equipment that, while worn, was well maintained. The apartment was up a flight of exterior stairs. Daniel's key turned smoothly in the lock, and he stepped into a space that made his chest tight. 2 actual bedrooms with doors. A kitchen with a full-sized refrigerator and a stove with all 4 burners working. Windows that sealed properly, radiators that didn't clang. It was everything their current place wasn't. He stood in what would be Maya's room, imagining her homework spread on a real desk instead of their wobbly table, imagining her having friends over without shame, imagining her having the childhood she deserved. His phone rang. An unknown number. "Hello." "Hayes. This is Marcus Washington." Daniel's blood chilled. "How did you get this number?" "Doesn't matter. Look, we need to talk. That fight Saturday was a legitimate knockout. You lost. Move on." "That's just it. I can't move on. You ruined me, man. You know what they're calling me now, Glass Jaw Washington? One loss and suddenly I'm a joke. That's not my problem. It could be your opportunity." Washington's voice changed, less angry, more calculating. "The rematch, Hayes. 20 grand guaranteed plus a cut of the pay-per-view. We could sell it as my redemption fight, your chance to prove it wasn't a fluke." "It wasn't a fluke." "I know that, you know that. But the public, they love a controversy. We give them a war, we both walk away rich." "I'm not interested." 30 grand. "No." "You're really going to walk away from that kind of money with a kid to raise?" Daniel's grip tightened on the phone. "Don't talk about my daughter." "I'm just saying that's college tuition right there. One fight." "You want advice? Washington. Stop calling yourself Thunder. Stop loading up on every punch. Learn to box, not just bang, and stop calling me." He hung up his hands, shaking slightly. Through the apartment window, he could see kids starting to arrive at the center below. Teenagers, younger ones, all carrying gym bags, all walking with the particular swagger of kids who'd learned to fight because they'd had to. Daniel made his decision. That evening he sat Maya down at their small table. The eviction notice was gone, replaced by Sister Catherine's card and a sketch he'd drawn of the new apartment's layout. "We're moving?" Maya asked, studying the drawing. "If you want to. It's a job, baby girl, running a boxing program for kids who need help." "Like you needed help." Sometimes her perception stunned him. "Yeah, like I needed help. And we'd live above the gym. Above the youth center. You'd have your own room, a real room with a door and everything." Maya traced the outline of the bedrooms with her finger. "What about my school? There's a better one in that neighborhood. St. Mary's Academy. You'd have to take an entrance exam, but I'll pass it." No hesitation, no doubt. Just the confidence of a 10-year-old who'd learned to be sure of herself because uncertainty was a luxury they couldn't afford. "So we're doing this?" Daniel asked. "Dad, you just won a fight. Everyone said you'd lose. I think we can handle a move." They packed that night, not that there was much to pack. Their life fit into 6 boxes and 2 suitcases. The furniture would stay. It came with the apartment anyway. As Daniel taped up the last box, he found the photo from his Golden Gloves win, the one Maya had been looking at days before. "Bring it," she said, appearing at his shoulder. "For the new place. It's ancient history." "It's our history. Mom's in that picture too, remember, in the crowd." Daniel looked closer. There, barely visible in the background, was Sarah's face, young and radiant, cheering for a fighter she didn't yet know would become her husband. "Yeah," he said softly. "Let's bring it." The next morning, their landlord, Mr. Kowalski, watched them load boxes into Tommy's truck with barely concealed relief. One less problem tenant to deal with before the renovation. "You could have had this place another few months if you'd paid up," he said, counting the rest of the money Daniel had brought. "We're good," Daniel replied. "Heard about your fight, saw the video. Not bad for an old man." "Thanks." Kowalski paused, then pulled out an envelope. "Your security deposit, minus damages." Daniel opened it. The full amount was there, no deductions. He looked up surprised. "Place was a shithole when you moved in," Kowalski said gruffly. "Still is, least I can do." It was the closest to kindness the man had ever shown. Daniel pocketed the money, shook his hand, and climbed into the truck, where Maya was already belted in her backpack full of books in her lap. "Ready?" Tommy asked. Daniel looked back at the building that had been their last stand, their refuge when everything else had fallen apart. Then he looked at Maya, her face bright with excitement about the future rather than fear of it. "Yeah, we're ready." The drive to St. Augustine's took them through neighborhoods that gradually improved, like watching a city heal in real time. Maya pressed her face to the window, absorbing everything. When they pulled up to the youth center, a small crowd was already gathered. Sister Catherine stood at the entrance, flanked by a group of teenagers trying to look tough despite their obvious curiosity. The video of Daniel's knockout had made him a minor celebrity in boxing circles, and these kids knew exactly who was stepping out of that truck. "Welcomes," Sister Catherine said, then addressed the gathered kids. "This is Mr. Hayes. He'll be running the boxing program from now on. You will show him respect, you will follow his rules, and you will learn." Questions. A tall Latino kid, maybe 17, raised his hand. "That's really the dude who knocked out Thunder." "It is," Sister Catherine replied. "Can he teach us that left hook?" Daniel spoke for the first time. "I can teach you to win without it. The knockout comes last, after footwork, defense, and discipline." "Man, that's boring," another kid called out. "So is losing," Daniel replied. "So is getting hit because you don't know how to move. So is gassing out in the second round because you never learned to breathe right." He stepped closer to the group, letting them see his still healing face. "You want to know what's not boring? Walking out of a fight you weren't supposed to win. But that only happens when you've put in the boring work first." The kids exchanged glances, reassessing. This wasn't going to be what they expected. "Training starts at 4, Daniel continued. "Sharp. Not 4:05, not 4:02. 4. You're late, you don't train. You come unprepared, you don't train. You disrespect anyone's in that gym. Me, each other, yourselves. You don't train. Clear." Mumbled agreements rippled through the group. I didn't hear you. Yes, sir? The response was stronger, not quite unified, but getting there. Good. See you at 4. The crowd dispersed, kids heading off to school or whatever occupied their mornings. Sister Catherine smiled approvingly. They haven't had structure in weeks. This will be good for them. She led Daniel and Maya up to the apartment, Tommy following with boxes. In daylight, the space looked even better. Maya immediately claimed her room, spreading her arms and spinning in the empty space. I can fit a desk and a bookshelf, and maybe even a chair, she announced. We'll get you furniture this weekend, Daniel promised, though his mental math was already calculating how far the security deposit return would stretch. No need, Sister Catherine said. There's a donation coming in tomorrow. Beds, desks, basic furniture. All yours. Sister, I can't. You can and you will. Consider it part of the compensation package. She handed him another folder. The kids' files. Medical clearances, emergency contacts, notes from the previous trainer. Study them before 4. She left them to settle in. Tommy helped carry up the last boxes, then stood in the living room, hands in his pockets. You did good, Dee. This is right. I turned down 50 grand, Tommy. You turned down being away from her. He nodded toward Maya's room where she was already arranging her few possessions. That's worth more than 50 grand. After Tommy left, Daniel sat on the floor of the living room, spreading out the kids' files. 20 names, 20 stories. Some had both parents, some had none. Criminal records for theft, assault, drug possession, though nothing violent enough to bar them from the program. Medical issues ranging from asthma to old injuries that never healed right. These weren't future champions. They were survivors just like him. Maya emerged from her room. Dad, I'm hungry. He'd forgotten about lunch. Again. But now with the fight money and the security deposit, he could do something about it properly. Let's go explore the neighborhood, he said. Find some food. They discovered a small Puerto Rican restaurant 2 blocks away, the kind of place where the menus were handwritten and the owner's grandmother cooked in the back. Daniel ordered them both the daily special, something with rice and beans and meat that fell off the bone. Maya ate like she'd been starving, which maybe she had been in small ways for longer than he wanted to admit. This is good, she said between bites. Yeah, it is. I mean all of it. The apartment, the neighborhood, your job. It's good. You're not mad I didn't take the fighting contract. Maya set down her fork, considering. Mom used to say you were different after fights. Not mean, just far away. Like part of you was still in the ring. Daniel's throat tightened. He'd never known she'd noticed. I don't want you far away, Maya continued. I want you here. I'm not going anywhere, baby girl. Good. Because I've got an entrance exam to study for, and you're helping with math. They walked back to the center as the afternoon sun warmed the February streets. Kids were already gathering, some shooting hoops on the outdoor court, others just hanging around. Several watched Daniel with recognition and curiosity. At 3:45, he was in the gym, changed into workout clothes that hid the worst of his bruises. The equipment was inventoried, the ring ropes checked, everything ready. At 3:55, kids started filtering in. By 4:00, 18 of the 20 were present. Where are Martinez and Williams? Daniel asked. Probably not coming, a girl named Keisha said. They haven't shown up in 2 weeks. They're enrolled, they're training. Someone go get them. What? But they live in the neighborhood. Yeah, but then go get them. Tell them they've got 10 minutes to get here or they're out of the program. 3 kids ran out. Daniel turned to the rest. First thing you learn, we don't leave people behind. Your teammate doesn't show, you find out why. They need help, you help. This isn't just about boxing, it's about building something together. 8 minutes later, the runners returned with Martinez and Williams in tow. Williams, a skinny white kid who looked like a strong wind would break him, was limping. What happened? Daniel asked. Twisted my ankle playing basketball. Figured I couldn't train. Can you stand? Yeah. Then you can train. Maybe not everything, but something. You don't skip because it's hard. You show up and do what you can. That's how you get stronger. He had them line up, assessing what he was working with. Most had some basic skills, but bad habits were already setting in. The tall Latino kid Rodriguez dropped his left hand every time he threw a right. Keisha telegraphed her punches like she was sending smoke signals. Williams, despite the ankle, had surprisingly good footwork when he forgot to be self-conscious. "Forget everything the last guy taught you," Daniel announced. "We're starting over, foundation up." Groans rippled through the line. "You got a problem with that Rodriguez?" "It's just we already know the basics." "Show me." Rodriguez stepped forward confident. Daniel held up pads. "Basic combination, jab cross hook." Rodriguez threw the combination. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't right either. His feet were wrong, his weight distribution off, his breathing all over the place. "Again," Daniel said. Rodriguez repeated it harder this time, trying to impress. "Again." By the fifth repetition, Rodriguez was gasping, his form completely fallen apart. "That's what happens when your basics are wrong," Daniel said, addressing everyone. "You gas out, you get sloppy, you get knocked out by an old man fighting for rent money." A few kids laughed. Rodriguez looked frustrated but interested. "So we start over," Daniel continued. "We build it right. Every punch, every step, every breath. We make it automatic so when you're tired, scared, or hurt, your body knows what to do without your brain having to tell it." He spent the next 2 hours drilling them on stance and movement. Nothing else. Just how to stand, how to move. Some kids got frustrated. Others, the ones who'd been on the wrong end of fights, paid attention like their lives depended on it. Maybe they did. By 6 o'clock they were exhausted despite barely throwing a punch. Daniel had them line up again. "Same time tomorrow," he said, "and every day after that except Sundays. Questions?" Williams raised his hand. "Why'd you really fight, Washington?" "The video? I mean, you looked scared at first." Daniel considered lying, giving them some inspirational nonsense. But these kids had probably heard enough lies. "I was about to be evicted. The fight paid $3,000. I needed the money." "So you didn't care about winning?" "I cared about surviving. Winning was just how I survived that night." "That's real," someone murmured. "That's all I've got for you," Daniel said. "Real. Real training, real talk, real consequences. You show up, you work, you'll learn to survive whatever comes at you, in the ring and out." They filed out slowly, some talking excitedly, others quiet and thoughtful. Rodriguez lingered. "Mr. Hayes, that left hook you knocked Washington out with. Will you really teach us that?" "When you're ready." "When's that?" "When you can throw a jab without thinking about it. When your footwork is perfect even when you're exhausted. When you understand that the knockout punch means nothing if you can't set it up." Rodriguez nodded and left. Daniel stood alone in the gym, absorbing the echoes of the day's work. Through the windows, he could see Maya, in the apartment above, bent over her books at the kitchen table. She looked up, caught his eye, and waved. He waved back. Then started cleaning the gym, mopping the floors, wiping down equipment, setting everything right for tomorrow. It was meditative, this simple work. No crowds cheering or jeering, no promoters promising riches, no young lions looking to make their names off his bones. Just work. Just building something one day at a time. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. He opened it to find a photo. Washington in a hospital bed, his jaw wired shut, middle finger extended toward the camera. The message read, "This isn't over." Daniel deleted it and kept mopping. Around 8, Sister Catherine appeared in the doorway. "How was the first day?" "They've got potential. They've got more than that. They've got you now." She walked into the gym, her footsteps echoing. "I should tell you something. Washington's promoter called me today. Offered to donate $50,000 to the youth center if I convinced you to take the rematch." Daniel stopped mopping. "What did you tell him?" "I told him we don't take blood money, but I wanted you to know that's how badly they want you back in that ring." "I'm not going back." "I know. That's why I hired you." She turned to leave, then paused. "Your daughter was in the computer lab earlier researching St. Mary's Academy. She's determined to get in." "She usually gets what she's determined to get." "Like her father, then." "Good night, Mr. Hayes." After she left, Daniel finished cleaning and climbed the stairs to the apartment. Maya had fallen asleep at the table, her math book open, pencil still in hand. He carried her to her new room, her actual room, with walls and a door, and tucked her into the sleeping bag they'd spread on the floor until the furniture arrived. She stirred slightly. "Dad?" "Yeah, baby girl." "Are you happy?" The question caught him off guard. What makes you ask that? You were humming while you were cleaning. I could hear it through the window. You haven't hummed in forever. He hadn't realized he'd been humming. Yeah, I think I am happy. Good. Me too. She drifted back to sleep. Daniel stood in her doorway for a long moment, watching her breathe. Then he went to the living room where their few boxes sat waiting to be unpacked. He found the photo from his Golden Gloves victory and set it on the mantel that actually existed in this apartment. Tomorrow he'd train kids who needed what boxing could teach them. Discipline, respect the ability to take a hit and keep moving forward. He'd help Maya study for her entrance exam. He'd build something real and lasting, not just survive another day. His phone rang. Tommy, do you see the news? Well, what news? Washington's officially challenging you, called you out on ESPN, says you got lucky, says you're a coward for not taking the rematch. Let him talk. That's it. That's your response. Daniel looked at the photo on the mantel, at Sarah's face in the crowd, at his younger self, with arms raised in victory. That man had thought winning was everything. This man knew better. My response is, I've got kids to train tomorrow. Good night, Tommy. He hung up and turned off his phone. Outside the city hummed with its nighttime rhythm. Sirens in the distance, music from somewhere down the block, life continuing in all its messy complexity. Daniel Hayes, the rent money fighter who'd walked away from glory, stood in his new apartment above a youth center where tomorrow he'd teach kids to fight the right way for the right reasons. It wasn't the life he'd planned, but it was the life he'd earned one hard choice at a time. In her room, Maya turned in her sleep, mumbling something about equations. Daniel smiled and went to his own room, his first real bedroom in 2 years. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new struggles, new small victories. But tonight, for the first time since Sarah died, he had everything he needed. The furniture arrived at 7 in the morning, waking Daniel from the first deep sleep he'd had in months. 3 volunteers from Sister Catherine's church hauled beds, desks, and dressers up the exterior stairs while Maya danced around them, directing traffic with the authority of a 10-year-old who'd just gotten her first real bedroom. The desk goes by the window, she announced, so I can see the gym while I study. Daniel helped position the furniture, his body still protesting from the fight 5 days ago. The bruises had faded to yellow-green, making him look jaundiced rather than beaten. As they worked, one of the volunteers, an older black man named Jerome, kept stealing glances at him. You're him, aren't you? Jerome finally asked as they maneuvered Maya's bed frame through the door. The fighter from that video. Used to be, Daniel replied. My grandson won't shut up about it. Says you proved old guys still got it. Your grandson wants to. His mom's worried he'll get hurt. Daniel tightened a bolt on the bed frame. Tell her to bring him by. Boxing's safer than the streets, and I don't let kids get hurt on my watch. After the volunteers left, Daniel found Maya arranging her few possessions on her new desk with the precision of someone who'd learned to value every small ownership. Her library card got prominent placement along with the one photo she had of Sarah. Mom would like this place, she said, not looking at him. Yeah, she would. She'd probably make curtains for the windows. Remember how she did that for the old house? Daniel remembered. Sarah had spent weeks sewing curtains from clearance fabric, determined to make their first home together perfect. Those curtains had been sold along with everything else when the medical bills came due. Maybe we can get some curtains, he said. I can make them. Mrs. Rodriguez from downstairs has a sewing machine she said I could use. Since when had his daughter learned to sew? There were so many gaps in his attention, moments lost to grief and survival, that he'd never get back. That'd be nice, baby girl? At 3:30, Daniel was in the gym preparing for the day's session when Sister Catherine appeared with a man in an expensive suit. Everything about him screamed money, from his Italian shoes to his Rolex to the way he carried himself like he owned whatever room he entered. Mr. Hayes, Sister Catherine said, her tone carefully neutral. This is Vincent Caruso. He's a benefactor of our programs. Daniel knew the name. Everyone in Chicago boxing knew the name. Caruso ran half the promotional companies in the Midwest with connections that went all the way to Vegas. He was also rumored to have other business interests, the kind nobody talked about openly. Mr. Hayes, Caruso extended a manicured hand. I've been eager to meet you. Daniel shook it briefly. Mr. Caruso. Please call me Vinny. Everyone does. He looked around the gym with an appraising eye. Nice setup here. Sister Catherine tells me you're doing good work with the kids. It's been 5 days. 5 days since you started here, sure. But that's not really when your story started, is it? Caruso pulled out his phone, swiping to a video. The Washington knockout played on the screen. This is when your story started. Or restarted, I should say. That story's over. Is it because from where I'm standing, it's just beginning? You know how many views this has now? 8 million. You know what that means in terms of marketability. Sister Catherine intervened. Vincent, we discussed this. We discussed me donating to your program, sister, which I'm happy to do. But I'm also a businessman, and when I see opportunity being wasted, he turned back to Daniel. 50 grand for a rematch with Washington, plus percentage of pay-per-view. No. 75. No. You're not even thinking about it. I don't need to think. The answer's no. Caruso's friendly demeanor cracked slightly. You know what your problem is, Hayes? You think you're better than this, better than the fight game. But you're not. You're a fighter who got lucky once, and you're walking away from the kind of money that could set your kid up for life. My kid's already set up. She has a home, food, and a father who comes home every night. That's all she needs. That's all she needs now. What about college? What about when she wants things you can't give her? You think this job teaching poor kids to throw punches is going to cover that? Daniel stepped closer to Caruso, close enough to smell his expensive cologne. Those poor kids you're talking about, they're worth 10 of you. Now get out of my gym. Caruso's face flushed. Your gym. This is Sister Catherine's place. I donate more in a month than you'll make in a year. And yet she asked me to run this program, not you. Daniel turned to Sister Catherine. If having him here is a condition of the job, I'll pack right now. Sister Catherine's eyes glinted with something like approval. Vincent was just leaving. Weren't you, Vincent? Caruso looked between them, calculating. This isn't over, Hayes. That rematch is happening with or without you. Washington's people want blood, and in this business, they usually get it. Tell Washington he knows where to find me if he wants to talk, but I'm done fighting for other people's entertainment. After Caruso left, trailing threats like cologne, Sister Catherine touched Daniel's arm. You just made an enemy. I've had worse. I doubt that. Vincent Caruso doesn't forget slights. Neither do I. The kids started arriving, the energy different from the day before. Word had spread about the new trainer who'd knocked out Thunder Washington, who'd told Vincent Caruso to go to hell. In their world, respect was currency, and Daniel's stock was rising. Rodriguez arrived with a black eye. He was trying to hide under a Cubs cap. Hat off, Daniel said. It's nothing. Hat off. Rodriguez removed it reluctantly, revealing a shiner that covered half his face. Who? Daniel asked. Nobody, just some guys. The same guys you're going to fight again tomorrow if this doesn't get resolved. Rodriguez's silence was answer enough. Everybody circle up, Daniel called. When the kids had gathered, he pointed to Rodriguez's eye. See this? This is what happens when you fight angry. Rodriguez, tell them what happened. Mr. Hayes, tell them or you don't train. Rodriguez's jaw clenched, but he spoke. These guys were talking shit about my sister, said things. I couldn't let it slide. So you swung on them? Yeah. How many? 3. And how'd that work out? Rodriguez touched his eye gingerly. Not great. Because you fought emotional. You fought to prove something instead of to win something. Daniel addressed the group. Pride's got no place in a real fight. Neither does anger. You fight with those you fight stupid. Rodriguez, you know what you should have done. Walked away. No, you should have picked the biggest one, waited until he was alone, and then had a conversation. Just you and him. No audience, no ego. Half the time that solves it. The other half, Daniel shrugged. At least it's one-on-one. That's some Sun Tzu shit, Williams muttered appreciatively. That's survival, Daniel corrected. Now Rodriguez stays after today for extra training. Anybody else got beef they're dealing with? 3 more hands went up. Daniel noted each one already planning individual sessions. These kids didn't need just boxing training. They needed life training, the kind the streets would teach them brutally if he didn't teach them first. 2 hours into training, while they were working heavy bags, a commotion outside drew everyone's attention. Through the windows, they could see a news van pulling up. Then another. Then another. "What the hell did," Keisha said. Daniel knew Caruso's parting shot probably. Make a spectacle, force his hand. "Keep training," he told the kids, heading for the door. Outside, reporters were setting up, and at the center of it all stood Marcus Washington. His jaw was unwired but still swollen, giving him a lopsided appearance that the cameras weren't being kind to. When he saw Daniel, his eyes lit with fury. "Hayes," he shouted, "stop hiding behind kids and face me like a man." The gym kids pressed against the windows. Maya appeared on the apartment stairs, her homework forgotten. Sister Catherine emerged from the main building, her expression thunderous. Daniel walked toward Washington slowly, hands relaxed at his sides. The reporters surged forward, microphones extended like weapons. "You got something to say, say it," Daniel said quietly. "You know what I got to say. You caught me with a lucky punch. You know it. I know it, everybody knows it. A lucky punch that separated you from consciousness." Washington's face darkened. "Run it back. Prove it wasn't luck." "I don't need to prove anything to you." "No, what about to them?" Washington gestured to the gym windows where the kids watched. "What kind of example you setting teachers too scared to fight?" Daniel felt the trap closing. Refuse and the kids see him back down. Accept, and he's back in the world he'd tried to leave. "You want to fight?" Daniel asked. "Name the time and place." Daniel smiled. Then the kind of smile that had once made opponents reconsider their choices. "Right here, right now. No cameras, no crowd, no money. Just you and me in that gym with those kids as witnesses. You win, I'll take your rematch. I win, you leave, and never come back." Washington blinked, thrown off script. This wasn't what Caruso had planned. That's not how it works. "That's how it works if you want to fight me. Otherwise, get off my property." The reporters were eating it up, cameras rolling as Washington struggled for a response. His manager, a thin man who looked like he survived on coffee and anxiety, whispered urgently in his ear. "You're on," Washington said finally. "Right now." "No." Sister Catherine stepped forward. "This is a youth center, not a—" "It's okay, sister," Daniel said. "This needs to happen." She studied his face, then nodded slowly. "No serious damage. Either of you." The group moved into the gym, reporters trying to follow, until Sister Catherine barred the door. "Children present," she said firmly. "This stays private." Inside, the kids backed against the walls, eyes wide. Maya had come down from the apartment, standing near Sister Catherine, with her arms crossed, trying to look unconcerned. Daniel and Washington faced each other in the ring. No gloves, no tape, just two men settling something primal. "First one down loses," Washington suggested. "First one to quit," Daniel countered. Washington charged immediately, having learned nothing from their first fight. Daniel slipped the rush, using Washington's momentum to send him into the ropes. The kids gasped. This wasn't the choreographed violence of movies or the structured sport of boxing. This was raw, urgent, real. Washington came back with a combination that would have been devastating if it had landed, but Daniel wasn't there anymore, moving with an economy of motion that made Washington look like he was fighting smoke. "Stop running," Washington snarled. "Stop missing," Daniel replied. For 3 minutes that felt like 30. Washington chased, and Daniel evaded, occasionally landing quick shots that stung more with their precision than their power. Washington's frustration grew with each missed punch, each stumble, each moment that reminded him of their first fight. Finally breathing hard, Washington stopped in the center of the ring. "Fight me straight up." Daniel moved in then, hands low, chin exposed. "Free shot." Washington's eyes widened. The kids held their breath. Even Maya leaned forward. Washington loaded up his best right hand, the punch that had ended 12 professional fights, and threw it with everything he had left. Daniel moved his head perhaps 3 inches. The punch whistled past his ear so close it ruffled his hair. In the same motion, he placed his open palm on Washington's chest and pushed gently. Washington overextended and off balance fell backward onto the canvas. The gym erupted, kids shouting, jumping, unable to contain themselves. Washington lay on his back, staring at the ceiling, finally understanding what everyone else already knew: it hadn't been luck. Daniel extended a hand. After a long moment, Washington took it, allowing himself to be pulled up. "How?" Washington asked quietly, the fight gone from his voice. "You're trying to kill everybody with every punch. All I have to do is not be there when it lands." Daniel turned to the kids. "That's lesson 1. Power means nothing if it doesn't connect. Rodriguez, you watching?" "Yes, sir." "Good, because you're going to demonstrate proper defense for the next hour." Washington climbed out of the ring, his manager rushing to his side. At the door, he turned back. "The offer stands, 75 grand. So does my refusal." Washington nodded, something like respect in his eyes, and left. The reporters swarmed him outside, but whatever he told them, it wasn't what they expected. Through the windows, Daniel could see him walking away. Shoulders slumped, his entourage trailing behind like a funeral procession. "That was amazing," William shouted, forgetting to play it cool. "That was a waste of energy," Daniel corrected. Washington didn't need to be embarrassed. He needed to be taught, but he wasn't ready to learn. He looked at each of his students. "You all ready to learn?" The chorus of "Yes, sir," rattled the windows. Training continued with new intensity. The kids had seen something beyond technique or power. They'd seen intelligence beat strength, patience beat aggression. Even Rodriguez, nursing his black eye, moved with new purpose as Daniel guided him through defensive drills. At 6 o'clock, as the kids filed out, Maya approached the ring where Daniel was adjusting the ropes. "That was stupid," she said. "Probably. He could have hurt you. He could have tried." She climbed through the ropes, something she'd never done before, and stood facing him in the center of the ring. "Mom wouldn't have liked it." "No, she wouldn't have." "But she would have understood why you did it." Daniel looked at his daughter, this child who'd grown wise too young. "Yeah, you were teaching, just dramatically." He laughed, pulling her into a hug. "When did you get so smart?" "Tuesday." They stood there in the ring where violence had just been transformed into education, where Daniel had proved something without destroying anything. Outside, the last of the reporters packed up their story now about a teacher who wouldn't fight rather than a fighter who wouldn't teach. "I need help with my math," Maya said against his chest. "Algebra. Fractions. The entrance exam for St. Mary's has a whole section on them." "Then let's go figure out fractions." They climbed out of the ring together, heading up to their apartment. At the stairs, Daniel looked back at the gym, where Rodriguez was still working the heavy bag, despite official training being over trying to perfect the defensive moves he'd seen. "Leave the lights on," Daniel called. "Lock up when you're done." Rodriguez nodded, not breaking rhythm. In the apartment, Daniel and Maya spread her books across the kitchen table, the one piece of furniture they'd bought new because Sarah had always insisted a family needed a proper table. For 2 hours, they worked through problems, Daniel reaching back to high school memories to help her understand numerators and denominators. "This would be easier if numbers made sense," Maya complained. "Numbers make perfect sense. People are what's complicated." "Is that why you won't fight Washington again, because people are complicated?" Daniel set down his pencil. "I won't fight him because fighting him doesn't solve anything. He'll still be angry, still be looking for someone to blame for his problems. And I'll just be feeding that cycle. But the money would come with strings. Always does." He tapped her worksheet. "Focus. You've got 3 more problems." At 9 o'clock, with homework complete and Maya getting ready for bed, Daniel's phone rang. "Tommy, you see the news?" "I was there, Tommy. I made the news." "Not that. Washington just announced his retirement, 23 years old, and he's done. Says the game isn't what he thought it was." Daniel moved to the window, looking out at the city lights. "Maybe that's for the best." "You ended his career, D." "No, I showed him what his career really was. He made the choice to end it." "Caruso's furious. His biggest draw just walked away. Word is he's blaming you." "Let him." "You don't understand. Caruso doesn't just get mad. He gets even. Then I'll deal with that when it comes." After Tommy hung up, Daniel stood at the window watching the street below. A few kids from the gym were playing basketball under the streetlights, their shadows long and distorted. Normal kids doing normal things, at least for tonight. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You cost me a fighter. I'll cost you everything. VC." Daniel deleted it and went to check on Maya. She was in bed reading by the light of her new desk lamp, the one luxury purchase he'd allowed. "Lights out, baby girl." 5 more pages? 2. 3. 2, and I'll make pancakes tomorrow. Deal. He kissed her forehead, noting how her hair smelled like the gym now leather and sweat and effort. She was becoming part of this place, this life they were building. In his own room, Daniel sat on the edge of his bed and finally allowed himself to feel the day's impacts. His ribs ached where Washington had landed a glancing blow. His hand, still healing from the first fight, throbbed with new damage. But beneath the pain was something else: satisfaction. Not from beating Washington again, that had been inevitable, but from what happened after, the way the kids had understood the lesson, the way Rodriguez had stayed late to practice, the way even Washington had finally seen the truth. His phone rang again. "Sister Catherine." "I wanted to thank you," she said without preamble. "For what? For showing those children that strength isn't just about force. Vincent called me, by the way. He's withdrawing his donations." Daniel's stomach sank. "Sister, I'm sorry. I'll figure something out." "No need. I made some calls. Turns out having the coach who taught Thunder Washington humility is quite the selling point. We've got 3 new donors lined up, all legitimate businesses." "You're not concerned about Caruso?" "Vincent Caruso is a small man with delusions of grandeur. I've dealt with worse. Have you?" Daniel thought about the cancer that had taken Sarah, the poverty that had almost taken their home, the desperation that had driven him into the ring with Washington the first time. "Yeah, I've dealt with worse." "Good. Then we understand each other. Good night, Mr. Hayes." Daniel lay back on his bed, staring at the ceiling that didn't have water stains in an apartment that didn't smell like mold in a building where he was building something instead of just surviving. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Caruso would make his moves, the kids would test boundaries. Maya would need help with more homework. But tonight, Daniel Hayes had everything he'd fought for: safety purpose, and a future that looked different from the past. The radiator kicked on, filling the room with warmth instead of clanging protests. Outside, the kids had finished their basketball game and were heading home, calling out goodnights to each other. Rodriguez's voice carried up, "See you tomorrow, Mr. H." Daniel smiled in the darkness. Mr. H. He'd been called worse things. Been worse things maybe, but now he was Mr. H, teacher of kids who needed what he could give them, father to a daughter who was thriving, man who'd walked away from easy money to build something harder, but better. His phone buzzed once more. This time it was Maya, texting from her room 10 feet away. "Dad, thanks for today, all of it." He texted back, "Thank you for being you, baby girl." "That's cheesy. Go to sleep." "Going. Love you." "Love you too." Daniel plugged in his phone and closed his eyes. Tomorrow at 4 a.m. he'd be up hitting the heavy bag in the gym before anyone else arrived. Not training for a fight, just maintaining the edge that kept him sharp enough to teach. At 7, he'd wake Maya for school. At 8, he'd walk her to St. Mary's for her entrance exam, which she'd ace because she was Sarah's daughter, and nothing could stop her when she set her mind to something. At 4 p.m., the kids would arrive for training, and he'd teach them more than boxing. He'd teach them what he'd learned the hard way, that real strength wasn't about knocking people down, but about knowing when not to. That respect was earned through discipline, not dominance, that the best fight was the one you avoided. But those were tomorrow's lessons. Tonight, Daniel Hayes slept the sleep of a man who'd finally found his corner, his place to stand and fight the only battle that truly mattered, the one for the next generation. Somewhere in the city, Marcus Washington was packing up his apartment, preparing to leave Chicago and the dreams that had defined him. Vincent Caruso was making phone calls, plotting revenge he'd never quite managed to execute. And in a small room 10 feet away, Maya Hayes was dreaming about fractions and futures, safe in the knowledge that her father would be there when she woke. The gym below sat empty, but ready heavy bags swaying slightly in the drafts that found their way through old walls. Tomorrow those bags would take the frustrated punches of kids who were learning to channel their anger into something useful. The ring would host sparring sessions where technique mattered more than toughness. The mirrors would reflect young faces discovering their own strength. Daniel's last thought before sleep took him was of Sarah, what she would think of all this. The boxing she'd never loved, the violence she'd worried would consume him, had become something else, a tool for teaching, for building, for protecting. He'd kept his promise to her in ways she'd never expected, teaching Maya to fight with her heart by showing kids from the neighborhood how to fight with their heads. The city hummed its nighttime song outside, sirens and music and life continuing its endless rhythm. But inside the apartment above St. Augustine's Youth Center, in the small circle of safety Daniel had fought to create, everything was quiet, everything was still, everything was exactly as it should be. The morning Maya took her entrance exam for St. Mary's Academy, Daniel woke to find her already dressed and sitting at the kitchen table reviewing her notes by flashlight to avoid waking him. It was 5:30 a.m., 2 hours before they needed to leave. "How long have you been up?" he asked, making her jump. "Maybe an hour," she admitted, closing her notebook. "I couldn't sleep." Daniel started the coffee maker, a luxury they'd allowed themselves with the new job's steady income. "Nervous?" "No," she said automatically. Then, "Yes. What if I'm not smart enough?" He sat across from her, taking her small hands in his scarred ones. "You're the smartest person I know, baby girl, and that includes your mother, who was brilliant. What if they ask about things I haven't studied? Then you figure it out, just like we always do." She squeezed his hands. "Will you wait for me?" "During the test?" "I'll be right outside that door for all 3 hours." At 7:45, they walked the 6 blocks to St. Mary's. Maya's test day outfit, carefully chosen, the one dress that still fit properly, cleaned and pressed by Mrs. Rodriguez downstairs, who'd insisted on helping. The academy looked like something from another world, all brick and ivy, with windows that had never been broken and replaced with plywood. Other parents were dropping off their children, most from cars that cost more than Daniel had made in the past year. Their kids had tutors, test prep courses, advantages Maya couldn't imagine. But she walked through those doors with her chin up, carrying herself like Sarah used to, like she belonged anywhere she chose to be. Maya Hayes, a woman with kind eyes and an expensive suit, greeted them. "I'm Mrs. Patterson, the admissions director, and you must be Mr. Hayes." "Yes, ma'am." She studied his still fading bruises without comment. "Maya, you'll be in room 203. Mr. Hayes, there's a parent waiting area down the hall." Maya hugged him quickly, fiercely. 3 hours, she whispered. "I'll be here." Daniel spent those 3 hours in a comfortable chair, pretending to read a magazine while actually watching the clock and trying not to think about all the ways this could go wrong. Other parents typed on laptops or made quiet phone calls. One mother recognized him. "You're the boxer," she said, not unkindly. "The one who runs the youth program at St. Augustine's." "Yes. My husband wanted to donate to that Caruso Fellows promotion to sponsor that rematch everyone's talking about. I told him he'd be better off donating to something that actually helps children." She pulled out a checkbook. "Would 5,000 be helpful?" Daniel stared at her. Yes, it would." She wrote the check with the casual ease of someone for whom $5,000 was pocket change, handed it to him, and returned to her laptop without another word. Daniel held the check like it might evaporate, thinking of new equipment, proper headgear, maybe even bringing in a physical therapist for the kids with old injuries. At exactly 11, horror doors opened and children streamed out. Some looked confident, others defeated. Maya emerged last, her face unreadable. "How'd it go?" Daniel asked. "The math was easy, the English was harder, the essay—" She paused. "They asked us to write about a moment that changed us. I wrote about Mom dying." Daniel's throat tightened. I wrote about how you taught me that getting knocked down isn't the same as losing. How watching you get up every day, even when you didn't want to, taught me more than any teacher ever could." She looked up at him. "Was that okay?" He pulled her close, not trusting his voice. They walked home together, stopping at the Puerto Rican restaurant for lunch because today felt like it deserved a celebration regardless of results. When they arrived at the youth center, there was a commotion in the gym. Daniel could hear shouting before they even reached the door. Inside, Rodriguez was squared off with three older boys, maybe 18 or 19, definitely not from the program. His black eye from the previous week had barely healed, and now it looked like he was about to add to the collection. "Get out," Rodriguez was saying, fists raised. "This is our place." The biggest of the three, wearing enough gold chains to stock a jewelry store, laughed. "Your place, kid, this whole neighborhood is our place. We just letting you play here." Daniel stepped forward. "Problem." The three turned, sizing him up. The leader's eyes widened slightly in recognition. "Shit, you're that fighter, the YouTube guy. I'm the coach, and you're leaving. Or what? You gonna knock us out like thunder?" The kid was trying to sound tough, but there was uncertainty in his voice now. Daniel moved closer. Close enough that they could see the damage still healing on his face. The scarred knuckles, the way he held himself, like violence was just another tool in his kit. "I'm going to ask you once more to leave. After that, I call Sister Catherine." "You know, Sister Catherine," the name had an immediate effect. The leader's bravado cracked. "We know her." "Then you know she's got connections you don't want to test. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave. You're going to stay away from my kids. And if I hear you've been recruiting around here, if I see you within 2 blocks of this center, Sister Catherine hears about it. Clear?" They left without another word, though the leader tried to salvage some dignity with a muttered threat that fooled no one. When they were gone, Rodriguez's shoulders sagged. "I had it handled, he said. "You had 3-on-1 handled. They were recruiting Tomas. He's only 13. Daniel looked at Tomas, one of the younger kids who was trying to shrink into the wall. "That true?" Tomas nodded, tears threatening. "They said they'd pay me $500 just to carry packages. My mom needs medicine. Your mom needs you home, not in juvenile detention or worse." Daniel addressed the whole gym where kids had stopped pretending to train and were openly watching. "Anyone here been approached by cruise gangs? Anyone offering easy money?" 8 hands went up. Daniel felt the weight of it, the constant pressure these kids faced, the gravitational pull of the streets. "Partner up," he said. "We're doing situational training." For the next 2 hours, he taught them more than boxing. He taught them verbal de-escalation, how to avoid being cornered, how to recognize when someone was setting them up. He had them role-play scenarios, practice exit strategies, learn the difference between standing your ground and being stupid about it. "The streets aren't the ring, Han," he told them. "There's no referee, no rules, no bell to save you. Your best weapon isn't your fists, it's your brain." After training, Sister Catherine appeared with a police officer, a black woman with sergeant stripes and tired eyes. "Sergeant Davis," Sister Catherine said. "She runs the community policing program. She'd like to talk to the kids about the gang attempting recruitment today." "How did you—" Daniel started. "Very little happens here I don't know about," Sister Catherine replied. Sergeant Davis was good talking to the kids like people, instead of problems, sharing her own story of growing up in the neighborhood, losing her brother to gang violence, choosing the badge as her way of fighting back. "Mr. Hayes is teaching you to defend yourselves," she said. "I'm here to make sure you don't have to." After everyone left, Daniel found Rodriguez still working the heavy bag. "Your eye's gonna swell shut if you don't ice it," Daniel said. "I'm good." Daniel grabbed the bag, stilling it. "No, you're not. You're angry." "They were on my sister again. Different guys, same shit." Rodriguez's fists clenched. "I can't be everywhere." "No, you can't. But you can be smart about this. What's your sister's name?" "Rosa. She's 15. Bring her here tomorrow. She trains too." "She's not a fighter." "Neither were you 6 weeks ago. Neither was I before I had to be." Rodriguez finally stopped punching exhaustion, replacing anger. "You really think teaching her to box will keep her safe?" "I think teaching her to carry herself like someone who won't be a victim might. And having 20 kids who've got her back doesn't hurt either." That evening, Daniel was helping Maya with her regular homework when his phone rang. Mrs. Patterson from St. Mary's. "Mr. Hayes, I wanted to call personally. Maya's test scores were exceptional, particularly in mathematics. But it was her essay that truly impressed us." Daniel put the phone on speaker so Maya could hear. "She wrote with a maturity and depth we rarely see. The line about learning to measure success not by never falling, but by always getting up one more time than you fall, that's graduate-level thinking." Maya grabbed Daniel's hand. We'd like to offer her a place for next semester with a full scholarship based on merit and need. Daniel couldn't speak. Maya could. Thank you, she said clearly. I accept. After more details were arranged and the call ended, they sat in stunned silence. Then Maya burst into tears, the stress and hope and fear of weeks finally breaking through. Daniel held her as she sobbed, his own eyes burning. Mom would be so proud, she whispered. She is baby girl. Wherever she is, she is. Later that night, unable to sleep from the day's emotional whiplash, Daniel went down to the gym. Someone was already there, Tommy working the speed bag and the dark muscle memory guiding his hands. Couldn't sleep either, Tommy asked without stopping. Maya got into St. Mary's, full scholarship. Tommy stopped grinning. That's fantastic, D. That's what it's all about. Yeah. Daniel started wrapping his hands, needing to hit something to discharge the energy coursing through him. Caruso's boys tried recruiting some of my kids today. Caruso doesn't run gangs. No, but he knows people who do. Message received. They worked in companionable silence for a while, the rhythm of gloves on leather, a meditation. Finally, Tommy spoke. You know there's another way to handle Caruso. If you're about to suggest I take the fight. No, I'm suggesting you beat him at his own game. You've got something here, D. These kids, they worship you. Their families trust you. Build on that. I'm not looking to build an empire, Tommy. Not an empire. A fortress. Make this place so important to the community that Caruso can't touch it without bringing heat he doesn't want. Daniel considered this as he worked through combinations. Sister Catherine's already doing that. Sister Catherine's got the politics covered. You need the streets. You need the kids who grew up here who've got cousins and crews who know how the neighborhood really works. Like Rodriguez. Kid's got more influence than he knows. His old man was connected before he died. People remember. The next morning, Daniel implemented a new policy family training sessions. Kids could bring siblings, parents, anyone who wanted to learn. Rosa Rodriguez was the first suspicious and defensive, but by the end of the session, she was laughing as her brother tried to teach her footwork. More families followed. Mothers who wanted to feel safer walking home from late shifts. Fathers who'd forgotten what it felt like to be strong. Little kids who just wanted to be like their older siblings. The gym became something more than a training facility. It became a community center, a safe zone, a place where the rules were clear and consistent and fair. Sister Catherine watched it happen with satisfaction, occasionally bringing potential donors through to see the transformation in action. One evening, 3 weeks after Maya's acceptance to St. Mary's, Daniel was supervising sparring when Vincent Caruso walked in. No entourage, no threats, just him in an expensive suit looking older than Daniel remembered. The gym went silent. Mr. Hayes, Caruso said. A word. Daniel nodded to Rodriguez to continue supervising and led Caruso to the office. They sat across from each other, the desk between them, like a negotiation table. You've built something here, Caruso said without preamble. I underestimated that. Daniel waited. The rematch with Washington is dead. He's gone back to Detroit, won't fight again. You broke something in him. He broke it himself. Perhaps. Caruso pulled out a cigar, then thought better of it. I'm not here to threaten you. I'm here to make you an offer. Not interested. You haven't heard it yet. I want to sponsor your program. Legitimate sponsorship, no strings. $50,000 a year. Daniel studied him, looking for the trap. Why? Because I'm a businessman and I recognize when I've lost. You've got the neighborhood. Sister Catherine's got the city. Fighting you is bad business. And you want something in return. Just consideration. If any of your kids want to go pro, you send them to me. Fair contracts, proper management. That's all. It was a good offer. Too good. I'll think about it, Daniel said. That's all I ask. Caruso stood to leave, then paused. You know, in another life, you could have been a champion. In this life, I'm something better. Caruso smiled sadly. A father. Yes, I suppose you are. After he left, Daniel returned to the gym to find Maya teaching Tomas fractions, using the ring's dimensions to explain numerators and denominators. Rodriguez and his sister were sparring. She was laughing as she landed her first clean jab. Williams was working with a new kid patient and encouraging. This was what he'd built. Not a championship, but a championship environment. Not glory, but something gloriously ordinary, kids learning to fight for their futures instead of against them. That night, as Daniel tucked Maya into bed in her room with actual walls and windows that sealed and hope that seemed sustainable, she asked, "Do you ever regret it? Not taking the money? The fight's all of it?" He thought about the check from the parent at St. Mary's now deposited and already allocated for new equipment. About Caruso's offer, which he'd probably refuse because some money came with costs you didn't see until too late. About the kids who showed up every day at 4 o'clock sharp, ready to work, ready to learn, ready to become something more than the streets expected. "No regrets," he said, kissing her forehead. "We're exactly where we need to be. Even if it's hard, especially then. The hard stuff's what shows us who we really are." Maya snuggled deeper into her blankets. "I think Mom would say we're doing okay." "Yeah, baby girl, I think she would." Daniel turned off her light and went to his own room, stopping to look out the window at the gym below. The lights were off, but he could feel its presence solid and sure, holding space for tomorrow's lessons. His phone buzzed. A text from Rodriguez. "Brought Rosa home safe. She wants to train every day now. Thanks, Mr. H." Then another from Sister Catherine. "3 more donors committed today. Your work speaks for itself." And finally, unexpectedly, from Marcus Washington. "Saw a video of your kids training. You're doing it right. Respect." Daniel set the phone aside and lay back, listening to the sounds of the neighborhood settling into night. Somewhere out there, kids were making choices that would define their futures. Some would choose wrong, seduced by easy money and false promises. But some would remember what they learned in a converted warehouse gym from a former fighter who chose teaching over glory. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Maya would start preparing for St. Mary's, nervous about fitting in with kids who'd never worried about rent. The gym kids would face fresh temptations from the streets. Caruso's offer would need an answer. Life would continue its relentless forward motion. But tonight Daniel Hayes had everything that mattered. His daughter was safe and thriving. His students were learning to fight the right battles. His purpose was clear, even if the path remained uncertain. The radiator hummed its lullaby, warm and consistent. Outside, Chicago's night sounds continued, sirens' music life, refusing to stop. But inside their small apartment above the gym, father and daughter slept peacefully, no longer running from the past, no longer afraid of the future, finally home in the present moment. In his dreams, Daniel didn't fight. He taught. He watched kids discover their strength, saw them choose discipline over destruction, witnessed them becoming the people they were meant to be. And in those dreams, Sarah was there, not speaking, just smiling, proud of the man he'd become by choosing love over fear, service over glory, family over everything. The gym stood ready for tomorrow, heavy bags still and waiting, ring ropes taut with possibility. Soon it would fill again with young voices, determined footsteps, the rhythm of gloves on leather that sounded like hope being hammered into shape. But for now it rested like its coach, gathering strength for the battles ahead. The morning Daniel decided to refuse Caruso's offer, Chicago was buried under an unexpected April snowstorm that made the city look clean and new, hiding all its scars under pristine white. He stood at the gym window watching Maya help the younger kids with their homework before training her St. Mary's acceptance letter still pinned to the bulletin board like a trophy. 3 months had passed since that night he'd knocked out Marcus Washington for rent money. 3 months of building something real in this converted warehouse, of watching kids transform from street fighters into disciplined athletes, of Maya growing into her own strength. The $50,000 from Caruso could secure all of it, could guarantee the program's future. But Daniel had learned long ago that guarantees came with hidden costs. "You're going to turn him down, aren't you?" Sister Catherine's voice came from behind him. Daniel didn't turn. "Money from Caruso is like fighting with a broken hand. You might win, but the damage lasts longer than the victory." Eloquent, and probably wise. She moved to stand beside him, watching the kids below. "Though wisdom doesn't pay for new equipment. We'll manage, we always do." "Actually, about that," Sister Catherine pulled an envelope from her habit. The diocese approved our grant application, $30,000 for the youth sports program. Seems they were impressed by a certain coach's impact on the community. Daniel took the envelope, feeling its weight. Sister, Don't thank me. Thank those children down there who show up every day and prove that investment in community works. And thank yourself for showing them how. Before Daniel could respond, a commotion erupted in the gym. Rodriguez was backing away from a man Daniel recognized with a chill. Carlos Mendoza, his father's old enforcer, now running his own crew. The man who'd tried recruiting the kids weeks ago had apparently decided to go higher up the food chain. Daniel was down the stairs and through the door before conscious thought kicked in. The gym had gone silent, kids pressed against the walls, Maya shepherding the younger ones behind her. Mr. Mendoza, Daniel said calmly, this is a private facility. Mendoza turned, gold teeth flashing in a smile that held no warmth. Hayes, the famous fighter. I came to talk to Rodriguez here about his father's debts. His father's dead, Daniel said. Debts don't die, Eze. They get inherited. Rodriguez's face was pale, but determined. I don't owe you nothing. Your old man died owing me 15 grand. That makes it your problem now. Daniel stepped between them. No, it doesn't. Rodriguez is 17. He's not responsible for his father's debts legally or otherwise. Legal? Mendoza laughed. We don't deal in legal. You do today. In this gym you do. Daniel moved closer, close enough to smell the marijuana and expensive cologne. Rodriguez trains here. That makes him under my protection. You want to discuss debts? You discuss them with me. Mendoza's hand moved to his waistband where the outline of a gun was visible. Several kids gasped. Maya took a step forward before Daniel caught her eye, warning her back. You threatening me, old man? I'm offering to resolve this peacefully. 15,000, you said. Plus interest. Call it 20. I'll give you 10 right now to walk away and never come near any of my kids again. Mendoza considered this. You got 10 grand just lying around. Daniel thought about the grant money, the donations, the careful budget he and Sister Catherine had crafted. I can get it. 1 hour. You bring me 10 grand, Rodriguez's debt is clear, and I stay away from your precious gym. Mendoza's smile widened. But if you're $1 short or 1 minute late, the kid comes with me. After Mendoza left, the gym exploded in nervous chatter. Rodriguez grabbed Daniel's arm. But you can't pay him. That's the program's money. The program's no good if we lose you to the streets, Daniel said. He looked at the assembled kids, their faces showing fear, anger, and something else, trust that he would handle this. Everyone take a break. Maya, take the young kids upstairs. Rodriguez, you stay with me. Daniel made 3 phone calls. First to Sister Catherine, who listened silently, then said, do what you must. We'll find other funding. Second to Tommy, who cursed creatively, then said, I've got 2 grand in my safe. It's yours. Third to the parent from St. Mary's, who'd written the check weeks ago. She answered on the second ring. Mrs. Harrison? This is Daniel Hayes. I have an unusual request. He explained the situation simply without dramatics. She listened, asked 2 questions, then said, I'll have 10,000 in cash ready in 20 minutes. Consider it an additional donation to the youth program. I'll pay you back. You'll do no such thing. My husband made his fortune in real estate, Mr. Hayes. He's taken homes for more families than he'd care to admit. Consider this balancing the scales slightly. Daniel took Rodriguez with him to collect the money, not trusting Mendoza's crew to leave the kid alone. As they drove in Tommy's borrowed truck, Rodriguez stared out the window. My dad wasn't a bad man, he said quietly. He just made bad choices. Most people aren't bad or good, Daniel replied. They're just trying to survive with the tools they've got. He used to box, before I was born. Said he was pretty good. What was his name? Miguel. Miguel Rodriguez. Daniel nearly drove off the road. He knew that name. Everyone in Chicago boxing knew that name. Miguel, the Miracle Rodriguez, who'd been 1 fight away from a title shot before a car accident ended his career and started his slide into crime. Your father was more than pretty good, Daniel said. He was exceptional. You knew him. I watched him fight when I was starting out. He had the best left hook I'd ever seen. Still do, except maybe, Daniel glanced at Rodriguez. Except maybe yours once we polish it. Rodriguez's eyes glistened. He never taught me. Said boxing was a dead-end road. Maybe he wanted a different path for you. Instead, I ended up owing his debts to gangsters. No, Daniel said firmly. You ended up in my gym learning to fight the right way for the right reasons. Your dad would be proud. They collected the money from Mrs. Harrison, who handed it over in a designer bag that probably cost more than the cash inside. Give them hell, Mr. Hayes, she said, with a smile that reminded him some rich people got that way by being fighters too, just in different arenas. Back at the gym, Mendoza was waiting with 3 of his crew. The kids were still there, refusing to leave despite Daniel's orders. Sister Catherine had arrived standing with the children like a guardian angel in a habit. Sergeant Davis was notably present too in civilian clothes, but with her badge visible on her belt. Interesting gathering, Mendoza said. The cop can't arrest me for collecting a legal debt. No, Davis agreed, but I can arrest you for the gun you're carrying without a permit. Or we can all pretend this is a friendly visit that's about to end. Daniel handed Mendoza the bag. 10,000. Count it if you want. Mendoza rifled through the bills, his crew watching hungrily. It's all here. He looked at Rodriguez. Your old man's debt is clear, kid. But remember, you're only protected as long as you stay in this gym. The streets have a long memory. After they left, the gym remained quiet for a moment. Then William started clapping slowly. Others joined in until the whole gym was applauding. Rodriguez looked overwhelmed, tears threatening. That money was for equipment, he said to Daniel. New bag's headgear. You're worth more than equipment, Daniel replied. All of you are. That's the lesson here. We don't leave our people behind no matter the cost. Sister Catherine stepped forward. Mr. Hayes is right. But also I've made some calls. The 10,000 will be replaced by week's end. It seems people appreciate a coach who puts his students first. That evening, as the adrenaline faded and reality set in, Daniel sat in his office doing math that wouldn't work. Even with Sister Catherine's promises, they were short. The grant money would help, but without the 10,000, they couldn't cover all the program's needs. Maya appeared in the doorway with a cup of coffee and a familiar stubborn expression. I've been thinking, she said. Dangerous habit. I could delay St. Mary's for a year. Public school isn't that bad. Absolutely not. Dad, the program needs you to succeed. You getting into St. Mary's that shows these kids what's possible. You giving it up shows them that sacrifice always flows downward. He pulled her into a hug. We'll figure it out. We always do. That night, Daniel's phone rang. An unknown number with a Vegas area code. Mr. Hayes, this is Robert Dunn from ESPN. I'm producing a documentary about underground fighting and redemption stories. We'd like to feature you. Not interested. There's a $50,000 participation fee. Daniel paused. Keep talking. We follow you for 3 months documenting your work with the kids, your story, the impact you're making. No manufactured drama, just real life. We've already got releases from the Washington fight footage. I need to think about it. Of course, but Mr. Hayes, this isn't just about money. Your story could inspire programs like yours across the country. After Daniel hung up, he stood at his window looking down at the gym. Rodriguez was there alone working the heavy bag with focused intensity. The kid had his father's left hook all right sharp and devastating when he let it fly. The next morning brought unexpected visitors, 3 of them all in their 20s, all with the particular swagger of professional fighters. Daniel recognized the leader Jerome the Judge Jackson, current light heavyweight champion. Mr. Hayes, Jerome said, removing his sunglasses, I heard about what you did yesterday, paying off that kid's debt. News travels. In the fight community? Yeah, it does. Jerome looked around the gym, taking in the worn equipment, the patched walls, the kids starting to arrive for morning training. I grew up 4 blocks from here, would have killed for something like this. What do you want, Jerome? To help. I'm doing a training camp for my next defense. I want to do it here with your kids watching. I'll pay rental fees, bring my own equipment, and your students can observe real championship preparation. Daniel studied him, looking for the angle. Why? Because somebody should have done it for me. Because watching you knock out Washington reminded me that fighting's about more than belts. Because... Jerome paused, his professional mask slipping. Because my little brother's getting recruited by the same crews that tried to get me. I want him to see another way. Bring him to training, 4 o'clock sharp. Just like that. Just like that. But Jerome, you train here, you follow my rules. No entourages, no cameras, unless we approve them, and you work with my kids when asked. Deal. Jerome extended his hand. Deal. Word of the champion training at St. Augustine spread like wildfire. By that afternoon, the gym was packed not just with regular students, but with kids who'd never shown interest before. Daniel had to establish a waiting list priority given to those who'd been coming consistently. Jerome was as good as his word, training hard, but taking time to work with the kids, especially Rodriguez, whose natural talent was obvious to anyone who knew boxing. This kid's got something, Jerome told Daniel during a water break. With proper training, he could go pro. He's got school to finish first. I finished school, got my degree while holding the belt. Daniel looked at Jerome with new respect. That wasn't in your bio. Doesn't sell fights. But my mama would have killed me if I didn't graduate. Jerome watched Rodriguez working with his sister. That kid, though, he's got the hunger. The right kind, not the desperate kind. He's also got a target on his back from his father's old life. All the more reason to get strong enough that no one wants to test him. That evening, ESPN called back. Dunn had sweetened his offer. 75,000 plus equipment donations from sponsors, plus coverage that would bring national attention to the program. Daniel found Sister Catherine in the chapel, not praying but sitting quietly in a pew, staring at the crucifix. Contemplating the big questions, he asked, sitting beside her. Contemplating how one man's decision to fight for rent money has transformed an entire community. It hasn't been just me. No, but you were the catalyst, the stone that started the ripples. She turned to him. ESPN called me too. They want to film here. What do you think? I think visibility can be both blessing and curse, but I also think your story needs telling. Not the knockout, but what came after. The choosing to build rather than chase glory. And if it brings problems, more Carusos, more Mendozas, then we face them, together as we have been. Daniel made his decision. I'll do it, but on our terms. The kids' faces get blurred unless parents consent. The focus stays on the program, not me, and we get final say on how we're portrayed. They'll agree, Sister Catherine said confidently. Your story's too good to lose over editing rights. The next week, as film crews set up unobtrusive cameras and Chicago Spring finally defeated winter's last gasps, Daniel watched his gym transform into something he'd never imagined. Jerome Jackson sparred carefully with advanced students, teaching them with every movement. Rodriguez helped new kids with basics, patient as Daniel had been with him. Maya, on early release from school, tutored younger kids in the corner, designated as homework space. The documentary director, a young woman named Patricia, who'd grown up fighting different battles in different rings, pulled Daniel aside. This isn't what I expected, she said. What did you expect? Honestly, a feel-good story about an underdog fighter teaching poor kids to box. But this? She gestured at the controlled chaos of the gym. This is about community, about choosing service over self. That's a much more powerful story. It's the only story I've got. That night, as Daniel helped Maya with her advanced mathematics, St. Mary's had sent summer prep work. His phone rang. Marcus Washington. I'm in town, Washington said without preamble. I want to come by tomorrow. Why? Because I've been watching the videos of your gym, because I've been thinking about what you said about learning to box instead of just bang, because, a pause, because I want to learn how to teach. You want me to teach you how to teach? I've got money saved. I could help fund the program, be an assistant coach. I need purpose, Hayes. Fighting was all I had, and you took that away. You took it away yourself when you couldn't handle losing. Yeah, maybe, but you showed me something that night. That there's more to this than just winning. I want to learn that. Daniel thought about redemption, about second chances, about how Sarah always said everyone deserved the opportunity to become better than they were. Be here at 9 tomorrow morning. We'll talk. I'll be there. As Daniel hung up, Maya looked at him curiously. Was that really Marcus Washington? Yeah. The guy you knocked out. The guy who's trying to find his way just like everyone else. Dad, Maya said seriously, you're too nice sometimes. Your mother said the same thing, but she also said kindness was never weakness if it came from strength. I miss her. Me too, baby girl. Every day. They worked in comfortable silence for a while, algebra problems giving way to deeper calculations about life and choice and the mathematics of redemption. The next morning, Washington arrived precisely at 9 dressed in workout gear rather than the flashy clothes he'd worn before. He looked smaller somehow, or maybe just more human, standing in the gym doorway with uncertainty in his eyes. You came, Daniel said. You invited me. They sat in the office, two fighters who'd shared violence now sharing coffee and conversation. I've been seeing a therapist, Washington admitted. She says I was fighting my father every time I stepped in the ring. He wanted me to be a boxer, pushed me into it before I could walk. I never asked myself if I wanted it. And now I know I love the sport but hate the business. I love teaching kids at the rec center in Detroit, seeing them learn what took me years to figure out. But I'm not good at it. I get frustrated, expect too much too fast. Because no one taught you patience. Yeah. Daniel made his decision. 3 months. You train here as an assistant coach, no pay. You follow my lead, learn how I teach work with the kids who need the most patience. After 3 months, if it works out, we'll talk about making it permanent. Washington's eyes widen. You serious? My kids deserve serious teachers. Question is, are you serious about becoming one? Dead serious. Then we start today. First lesson, it's not about you anymore. It's about them. Every decision, every lesson, every moment in this gym is about making them better, safer, stronger. Can you handle that? I want to try. Daniel stood, extending his hand. Washington shook it, and something shifted in the air between them, from opponents to potential allies, from fighters to teachers. That afternoon, when the kids arrived to find Marcus Thunder Washington helping set up equipment, the gym went silent. Rodriguez was the first to speak. Yo, that's the guy you knocked out. That's Coach Washington, Daniel corrected. He's here to learn how to teach, just like you're here to learn how to fight. But he lost to you, Williams said, confused. Washington stepped forward. Yeah, I lost. Best thing that ever happened to me. Losing taught me more than winning ever did. Mr. Hayes showed me that strength isn't about knocking people down, it's about knowing when not to swing at all. The kids exchanged glances, processing this. In their world, losing meant weakness, meant becoming prey. Seeing Washington own his loss, learn from it, even be grateful for it, that was revolutionary. Plus, Washington added with a slight smile, anyone who can knock me out can definitely teach me something worth learning. The ice broke. Kids laughed. Tensions eased. By the end of training, Washington was holding pads for beginners, his patience tested but holding as Daniel guided him through the teaching process. Patricia, the documentary director, pulled Daniel aside. This is incredible. The man you defeated becoming your student. The poetry of it. It's not poetry, Daniel corrected. It's just life. People change, situations evolve. The real victory isn't in knocking someone down, it's in helping them get back up. That evening, as the gym emptied and the film crew packed their equipment, Daniel found himself standing in the ring with Washington, both of them sweaty from the day's work. This is harder than fighting, Washington said. Different kind of hard. Fighting's about destroying, teaching's about building. Building's always harder. Rodriguez has real talent. They all have talent. For something. Our job is to help them find it. Washington nodded, then said quietly, I owe you an apology for coming here that day, making a spectacle, trying to force you back into fighting. You were hurting. Hurt people do hurtful things. Your daughter, Washington observed, nodding toward Maya, who was helping clean equipment. She's special. She's everything. I can see why you walked away from the money. I had no one to walk away for. You do now, Daniel said, gesturing toward the kids, still lingering, reluctant to leave the safety of the gym. Every one of these kids is someone to fight for, to teach, for to be better for. As they closed up the gym, Sister Catherine appeared with an envelope. The replacement funding came through, she announced, plus an additional $20,000 from an anonymous donor who was, and I quote, inspired by a coach who paid a student's debt with program funds. Daniel felt his knees nearly buckle with relief. They could get the new equipment, fix the leaking roof, maybe even add those mirrors the kids had been asking for. Also, Sister Catherine continued, St. Mary's called. They want to establish a partnership. Their students volunteer here, your students get tutoring and mentorship. They're particularly interested in Rodriguez. Apparently his grades have improved dramatically since he started training. That's Maya, Daniel said proudly. She's been tutoring him. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. A teacher raising a teacher. That night, as Daniel tucked Maya into bed, a ritual she claimed she was too old for but never refused, she asked, Do you think Mr. Washington will be a good teacher? I think he wants to be. Sometimes that's enough to start. Do you think I'll be a good student at St. Mary's? I think you'll be exactly who you are, brilliant, kind, and stubborn as your mother. I'm nervous, she admitted in the darkness. Good. Nervous means you care. Caring means you'll work hard. Working hard means you'll succeed. Is that Hayes wisdom or boxing wisdom? Both. Everything I know about life I learned in the ring. Everything I know about love I learned from you and your mother. Maya was quiet for a moment, then, We're doing okay, aren't we, Dad? Daniel thought about their journey from an eviction notice to stable housing, from desperation to purpose, from surviving to thriving. He thought about the kids whose lives were changing, because one night he'd fought for rent money and discovered he had more to offer than his fists. Yeah, baby girl, we're doing better than okay. We're doing good. Mom would be proud. She is proud. I feel her every day in your laugh and your determination in the way you help without being asked. She's here in everything we've built. As sleep took Maya, Daniel stood by her window looking down at the gym. Tomorrow, the documentary crew would return. Jerome would continue his training camp. Washington would struggle with patience but keep trying. Kids would arrive at 4 o'clock sharp, ready to learn not just boxing, but life. It wasn't the story he'd imagined when he stepped into that warehouse ring months ago, desperate and afraid. But it was better. Because this story wasn't about him, it was about them, all of them building something together one day. One lesson, one choice at a time. The city hummed its nighttime symphony outside, but inside their small apartment above the gym, everything was quiet, everything was safe, everything was possible.